Good morning. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year. Family getting together, the Lions losing, turkey, pumpkin pie, possible dairy farm without water right in the middle of dinner. Yeah, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Welcome to episode 38 of the Driller Newscast. I know this is a short, busy week, so let's jump right into the news and stories impacting the water and drilling industry. The EPA awards 7.7 million for research grants to improve risk assessment of chemical mixtures in the environment. That's right. PFAS, emerging contaminants. There's plenty of things out there. We need more grant funding so that we can catch these faster. Next, the U.S. Department of Energy and the U.S. National Science Foundation announced a new internship program to support the growth of geothermal energy workforce. I started my professional career outside of the Yordy and Son family business in an internship with Bayreuth IDP Halliburton. It's a great way to grow as a professional in this industry. But before we jump into the news, let's talk about cold weather safety. Let's talk about cold weather. We got snow on the ground. The temperatures are getting increasingly colder. Got a lot of good men and women that have just joined this industry, and they don't realize that we work half to a third of our year in inclement weather, and we're always wet and cold and muddy. We're going to start with frostbite and hypothermia. Hypothermia is the potentially fatal condition caused by the loss of body temperature. It's no different than our heat-related illnesses when you think about this. For example, exposed skin can start to freeze at just 28 degrees Fahrenheit. That's -2 degrees Celsius for those Canadians up there that like to make it sound like it's colder than it's not. I'll stop digressing. Deep frostbite can cause blood clots and even gangrene. Hypothermia symptoms include fatigue, nausea, confusion, lightheadedness, and profuse sweating. Just like our heat-related illnesses, we need to think about our environment, how we're hydrated, how we're eating, the layers we have on. Without medical treatment, the victim can lose consciousness and possibly die. We need to be thinking about how our people are affected and the fact that many of them maybe are not used to working in these type of conditions yet. No different than our summer months of getting, worked into a situation of understanding, the heat and how our body reacts. The same happens with the cold. All right, let's talk gloves, because let's face it, this is one of those things that they're either wet, they're too big, they just don't work for what we're trying to do. And this is what impacts us. We have hand injuries, we have that frostbite, there's plenty of things going on. We need to wear the right gloves for the work. Cut level, insulated. Gloves should have enough insulation to keep you warm and prevent frostbite, and be thin enough so that you can feel the tools, the controls, what we need to be manipulating. And this has been our biggest problem with what is the right glove. Gloves that are too thick can also overwork your hands and wrists, causing repetitive stress. We talked about repetitive stress a few weeks ago. This is another situation of that. Beyond gloves, it's time to talk about how we're going to dress in cold weather. And this is another tough one because hoods, not good for rotating equipment. We need to be dressing in layers of lightweight clothing that keep you warmer than a single layer of heavy clothing. We need to be able to remove these layers as necessary to prevent overheating and perspiring, which can lead to chills or hypothermia. Wet clothing is 20 times less warm than dry clothing. Makes sense? We're always going to be wet. We need to have change of clothes. We need to be prepped to work in this cold weather. Now, moving on to that, we need to be able to retain heat in our body. We got that hard hat. It's time to make sure we have a skull cap. We need to wear a hat as much as half our body heat can go up in steam off the top of our head. We need to protect our ears from frostbite. We need to wear a hat that will cover our ears or use earmuffs. I know this isn't the Christmas story and you're thinking about how you're moving on the job site, but I once worked a cold weather job in Canada that talked about losing the tip of your nose or losing the bottom of your ears to frostbite. It's time to check everybody's winter wardrobe and think about entanglement hazards, loose sleeves, dangling drawstrings. All these, we need to recognize those hazards. Anything that can get caught in rotating machinery, we need to address it. Next, eye protection. This is tough because we're always fogging up, right? We need to keep our safety eye gear in good condition and look at good anti-fogging wipes and other appropriate ways of maintaining our safety glasses. Eye injuries still lead our industry from what we would call struck by from rotating equipment. Next, footwear. What do the soles of our winter boots look like? Do we need to get some of those attachments that make it so that we can work in those icy conditions? Think about our slip, trip, and falls. Your shoes or boots should have adequate tread to prevent slip, trips, and falls on wet or icy surfaces. We need to talk to our teams about slowing down when we're tripping in casing. We're working with pipe. There's plenty of places that we can get entangled and end up falling. If we're going to be tripping pipe into a rod box, how is that area? Do we have it so that it's gripped? Is it icy? What is that going to be for our hazard? Finally, we need to make sure we're eating appropriate. This does not mean a high-fat diet, but one with enough calories and nutrients to give us the fuel we need. We need to start with a hearty breakfast. Yordy and Sons, we used to plan every drilling project around breakfast, so that's probably why I got pretty big, though I was working hard. So we need to be thinking about that calorie intake and making sure we're maintaining our people. Finally, the days are short. It's already dark. We need to make sure we're getting plenty of rest. Working in cold and traveling on these projects is just one of those things that is wearing us out. So we need to make sure we understand how to pace ourselves and what we're doing. Did you know that 70% of deaths during snow or ice storms occur in vehicles? We talked about having the good cold weather gear. We need to make sure we have an emergency set that has a blanket or sleeping bag, candles, snow shovel, a sandbag if we get stuck, a flashlight, non-perishable food like cereal bars, jerky. We need to make sure that if we get stuck in inclement weather, that we can survive that situation. It's winter. We're here. It's time for us to be thinking about this and taking care of our people. Be safe out there. For this week in the news, we're going to start with the EPA, who was awarded $7.7 million for research grants to improve risk assessments of chemical mixtures in the environment. The EPA has announced $7,770,044 in research grant funding to 11 institutions to develop and evaluate innovative methods and approaches to inform our understanding of the human health risks that may result from the exposure to chemical mixtures in the environment. This is from Assistant Administrator of the EPA, Chris Fry. Protecting public health is an essential part of the EPA's mission. The research announced today will advance the science for evaluating mixtures of chemicals and their toxicity so we can better understand the human health impacts and ultimately better protect public health. I want you to think about how PFAS is being fought, how they're trying to regulate with the PFAS roadmap. NGWA just last week released the latest on what the EPA is thinking about for forever chemicals and PFAS. Toxicology studies have traditionally focused on the effects of single chemicals on human health. However, chemicals in the environment are often present as mixtures in the air, water, soil, food, and products in commerce. Again, we're talking about PFAS. We're talking about heavy metals. We're talking about, aromatic hydrocarbons. disinfections by products, all of the forever chemicals that we don't quite understand how they're impacting individuals and infants and development, and how they interact with the soils and the water and the air. We're finding PFAS in crops. There's plenty of things happening here. This is great grant funding. There is a need to assess the toxicity of chemical mixtures to understand how their combined effect on our health and the environment differ from what we know about individual chemicals. Due to the lower cost and higher throughput, the new approach methods and alternative animal models have emerged as potential approaches to advance the risk assessment of mixtures. To help address this research needed, the institutions receiving these grants will conduct research focused on the development and improvement, evaluation, and integration of predictive toxicology methods to evaluate environmental chemical mixtures. The grantees are Medical University of South Carolina, Charleston, Purdue University, CUNY New York University, Texas A&M University, Buffalo, New York, who's going to study the assessment of neurotoxicity of mixtures of PFAS and other neuroactive organic pollutants in vitro and cellular and vivo models. That's big. The University of Georgia Foundation in Athens is going to look at quantitative adverse outcome pathway networks to assess the toxicity of PFAS. Wayne State University is going to look at underlying molecular mechanisms promoting the outcome in complex mixtures. We also have the University of Houston, North Carolina, Massachusetts, and Georgia Institute of Technology, all working on how these chemicals are mixing in our environment and impacting. This is a full gambit of what we need for regulation, for understanding how it's impacting the waters of the United States, how it's impacting our groundwater. And think about it as we go into legal proceedings for damages, and everything is based on what we know of a chemical versus what we know of a chemical when it gets out into the wild. It's a very awesome grant, and we should all be thankful. Now back to some good geothermal industry news. The U.S. Department of Energy and the U.S. National Science Foundation announced a new internship program to support growth of geothermal energy workforce first activities through the NSF and DOE. This internship program will bolster ambitious geothermal energy goals for the U.S. I want you to look at what's happening with COP27 right now, and we have some pretty grave news going on that says we're not going to maintain that 1.5 degrees Celsius that we needed to stay at in order to slow down extreme weather and droughts and all the bad situations that are going on. So last week, the Department of Energy with the NSF announced this internship program to support goals of the Department of Energy's recently launched Enhanced Geothermal Shot. The new collaboration is part of the NSF's intern program. It will support 10 to 26-month research internships per year to work in geothermal industries on projects that advance geothermal technologies. It's just like the Forge project. Like I've been saying, guys, yes, we have water. We have plenty of geotech going on. Geothermal is so important to what we're doing in the industry right now and in protecting the environment, getting us to net zero, our 2030 goals, our 2050 goals. This is just another piece. This is the first activity coordinated through NSF and DOE together. It was signed last March, but it formalizes the agency's longstanding partnership on scientific and engineering research to bolster national energy policy. We are very excited to support emerging geothermal energy professionals alongside our partners at the National Science Foundation. That came from Acting Assistant Secretary Moreno for the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at the Department of Energy. Geothermal energy already provides enough electricity to power more than 2.7 million American homes. But this is just a small portion of its vast potential. We know the potential geothermal industry. We're about to have the National Groundwater Conference and the International Ground Source Heat Pump Conference together in Vegas. Water well drillers, it's time to step over, start learning about installing loops, diversifying your business. Geothermal drillers, it's time to go over and professionally develop with your groundwater brethren. All the money is focused on us being able to drill more holes. Investing in the geothermal energy workforce will help unlock this resource and put new, clean, dispatchable electricity on the grid. The goal is to train diverse graduate students for careers in geothermal energy, whether in academia, industry, or government, which will enable the United States to speed growth in clean energy technologies and support our research and industrial leadership. That came from Dr. Susan Margulies, NSF Assistant Director for Engineering, Research, and Innovation. The goal is to drive down costs and realize this potential will require significant growth in the geothermal energy workforce. If you want more information about the geothermal intern opportunities, it's available at the National Science Foundation website. Another cool piece of this is the Enhanced Geothermal Shot. What is that? It aims to bring enhanced geothermal systems to Americans nationwide and aims to reduce the cost of these enhanced geothermal systems by 90% by 2035. Again, COP27 going on right now, the biggest climate group to come together. In 2015 is when we said we needed to maintain 1.5 degrees Celsius. And they're talking about how are we going to get that done? And it's not getting done by shifting around who has what carbon credits. We got to reduce carbon. So it's Department of Energy's Earthshot initiative is to help break down the biggest remaining scientific and technical barriers to tackling the climate crisis. Energy Earthshot supports our country's goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050 while creating jobs and growing the economy. Enhanced geothermal systems hold enormous promise as a firm, flexible source of electricity and heating and cooling. The Earthshot initiatives aim to accelerate breakthroughs of more abundant, affordable, and reliable clean energy solutions. Achieving these targets will help America break down the biggest remaining scientific and technical barriers to tackling the climate crisis. Look what New York's doing. Look at New York City going net zero. No more fossil fuels in new structures. At first, anything under 7 stories, and the next over. Right now, geothermal energy currently provides 3.7 gigawatts of electricity in the United States. That's enough to power more than 2.7 million homes. The research and innovation to advance enhanced geothermal systems, drilling, and engineering can unlock those resources tenfold and put new, clean, dispatchable electricity on the grid, which could easily move to 40 million homes. 40 million homes, that's the same as the amount of people that drink out of the Colorado River Compact. These investments will also exponentially increase opportunities for geothermal heating and cooling solutions nationwide. Yes, as a big chunk of this, hot rock geothermal and not closed loop or our traditional standing column or whatnot. It's all geothermal and it's all important. And there's going to be test holes. There's going to be geotechnical data done. There's plenty coming with this. It's time to diversify. If you're at NGWA, it's time to come over, hang out at IGSPA. IGSPA, geothermal drillers, it's time to go over and collaborate and find out how we can get more drillers into this industry. The greatest thing about this internship program, yes, did a big chunk of it say graduate students? Absolutely. We need academics that are involved in drilling from day one. Same reason we have the Western Michigan University Hydro Field Camp. This is a big piece for us. We need to be able to get people involved, collaborate, and do it at a point that it's not immediately on the impact of how quickly the project needs to be completed or through change orders. And these internships and these situations is how we do it. We all need to be thankful for what's going on with the federal government right now and the amount of money that's being put into drilling and our environment. This is a big deal. That's what I'm thankful for Thanksgiving. I want to thank you for joining us for episode 38 of the Driller Newscast. We talked some safety. It's been a while. We talked about the EPA and the Department of Energy and how we have funds right now that are directly impacting the success and the longevity of our industry. It's very important for us to think of this as it's our week of Thanksgiving. And after that, we have 1 week and we're all going to be in Las Vegas. And it's time to come by the driller booth. It's time to go hang out and take some classes with IGSPA. I'll be teaching recruiting the next generation, and I'll also be teaching expectations and a great performance review process for Generation Z. Dave Bowers and I will be teaching on the NGWA floor a hazards assessment class. Safety, we always need more of it. Check out thedriller.com. And I hope you have a great, short, productive week. And all those water systems stay maintained so you can enjoy your Thanksgiving and the following day and get refreshed because, man, we got a week, then we're going to be in Vegas, and then it's going to be Christmas. I love this week. Thanks, everybody.